you're a Epic Times Ohio reporter, and you live. Where do you live again? Where are you coming from?
I'm sorry, I'm adjusting everything now. I'm based here in southern Ohio in the Appalachian foothills down Highland County, between Hillsborough and Greenfield. I'm from the Xenia area and lived in the Dayton area for a long time, but
Okay, so
moved
you're
down
right on.
here.
You're kind of like on the Ohio what? West Virginia border, Pennsylvania.
It takes about an hour to the West Virginia border, an hour to the Kentucky border.
Oh, okay.
It's a great location because, like with Epic Times, I travel all over the country. If I need to be in Columbus or Cincinnati to fly out, it just takes me like an hour, 20 minutes. But I'm down here. I moved like a year and a half ago. That's part of my story, actually. I also have All in Ohio, which is a sustainable living, a rural living website. And I moved down here to be in the country and to learn how to grow things and to be more self-sufficient and
get off the grid. You're off the grid.
Kind of amusing because
except
I'm still
for
a city
Zoom.
boy.
Yeah, except for Zoom, you're off the grid. All right, I want to play this. Watch this here.
So tonight, I want you to join me in endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy to be our next governor.
All right, what do you think of those words? So you've been following Vivek, his campaign and everything, right, for the Epic Times?
Yeah, that's one of the. I'm still covering RFK Jr. and the Make America Healthy Again movement, HHS, but I'm covering the Ohio gubernatorial race. So, as you know, in Ohio, the Republican primary is really the race.
Okay, so you're not just covering Vivek; you're covering everybody. So, give me your take on it right now. Who is running for governor? I know Vivek. I know Dave Yost. Is there any possibility that Jim Tressel might throw his name in?
Well, that's the speculation, and that's interesting because people who follow Ohio politics know that Mike DeWine does not get along or like Donald Trump. Donald Trump feels the same way about Mike DeWine, and obviously Vivek Ramaswamy being a MAGA guy. Excuse me. So I wouldn't be surprised. That's just speculation at this point. Some people think he's just a placeholder, and that's not going to happen. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Jim Tressel. Obviously, I have an Ohio State sweatshirt on right now. This is Ohio. Ohio State football is like a religion, and as ridiculous as it might seem, people are going to vote if Jim Tressel gets in the race. Some people will vote for him because of that, and then of course you have the moderate non-MAGA Republicans, and you have the Democrats who would support Jim Tressel because it goes down to the I hate the orange man, the Vivek Ramaswamy being tied to Donald Trump, and there's people who just won't vote for anyone related to Donald Trump, and some people just don't like anything MAGA related.
Yeah, that's true. But Trump did take the state by 11 points or something. So I'm not too worried about the Trump haters. I mean, the guy is just killing it here in Ohio, I think. So let me ask you this then. Swap over to the Democrat side because I think it's only those three for the Republican side: Yost, Ramaswamy, and maybe Jim Tressel. That he's an outlier. He's an outlier.
And you have more of an independent Heather Hill running. I believe when I'm covering races and covering all candidates, and she's obviously a long shot candidate, people don't really know a whole lot about her.
Yeah, what's her name again? Race. What's her name?
Heather Hill. And she's more of a kind of like on a very lower scale because she hasn't gotten the traction yet of Joe Blystone, but more of a grassroots candidate. On the Democrat side, you have Amy Acton, and there's a possibility that Tim Ryan is going to run, I believe. Obviously, people know Tim Ryan for being a longtime Democrat congressman from Northeast Ohio, but he ran against J.D. Vance in 2022 and lost decisively. But he might run. And then there's speculation, what is Sherrod Brown going to do? Some people think he's going to get back in the Senate race to run against Husted. But obviously that there's going to be another special election, or a special election in 2026. And then the general, another race or another election in 2028. So wouldn't be surprised if Sherrod Brown ran for that Senate seat, but he would be a formidable candidate if he ran for governor. But I haven't heard any. I mean, it looks like it's Amy Acton on the Democrat side.
Amy Acton is in there at the moment. Now, does she have the support of the Democrat Party? Because it's one thing to be running. Okay, any but Republican can run. But you look to see if they have the backing of the Republican Party, if they have the backing of the chairman in the different counties, that whole grassroots groundswell. So, Amy Acton, are the Democrats really behind her, or is she just kind of going on her own rogue way? What's your thoughts?
Well, how was anyone behind her to begin with? Because she was staggeringly wrong about every prediction or every forecast she made about COVID, and but she was popular among the Democrats and the people who loved DeWine. I used to call it the DeWine Amy Acton Variety Hour. Every day where they would peddle the fear mongering, and nothing they said ended up being true. But people, I mean, you have the Amy Acton fan club on Facebook, which is pretty big. You look at it objectively. The Democrats, obviously Vivek Ramaswamy, he's right now. If the Republican primary would be held, it would be a landslide, in my opinion, and based on polls. He would easily beat Dave Yost, and it might change if Jim Tressel gets in the race. But on the Democrat side, Amy Acton has never run for office, but what do they have? I mean, Sherrod Brown is a formidable candidate. He has a lot of support, but he was tied to the Biden administration. So.
Well, I got one thing. I got a tidbit to throw in. I know the Republican Party is itching to do an endorsement. The sooner the better, because that's just the way they are. And right now, if they were to do an endorsement, it would be for Vivek Ramaswamy, guaranteed. So it's either they're going to hold off on endorsing or they're going to go with him. But it's kind of early to be doing that. But then, this is such a serious governor's race. We have to pull it out. And so that's about all you've heard. There is no other Democrat other than maybe a Tim Ryan or a Sherrod Brown. But Sherrod Brown might be more interested in the Senate seat.
Yes.
Yeah. Brian, you've been following politics longer than I have, I think.
Well, at the state level, Jeff certainly knows the players. I contend that we need some new blood down in the State House. So, I'm all for Vivek. He's mentioned that he's interested in doing something drastic to the property taxes. So when we hear that, that certainly grabs our attention. And as far as the Democrats, they're going to have a hard time winning. I really do. Even Sherrod Brown, with all his name recognition, I'd say try running for governor up against Vivek. Amy Acton I don't think she's gonna have a chance at all. And how much does it cost to run for a governor's spot? Is it
for a governor,
$10 million?
It could be crazy. The governor's the record was $32 million for our governor DeWine. Not this last million. Time because he went up against an easy opponent, but the first time he had to go up against, I think was it Richard Cordroy? I believe it was. Wow. I don't think that she's a viable candidate. I think she's a Lone Ranger type person. She's out there. She wants the spotlight. She's got this idea that she can do it. A lot of people get that idea in politics, but again, if you don't have the party behind you, unless you've got tons of money, you may as well forget it.
Sherrod Brown, who has his own chapter dedicated in a book called Profiles in Corruption. I said it twice because it's important, and he should never be elected to anything ever again. A couple of comments. The first is, at various times during the however long it's been, it's time flies when you're having fun. Has it been a year? However long we've been doing this podcast, at various times,
2 years.
I have held up
We've
2
been
years.
doing it.
See, it just
Now,
feels like we're just
a
getting
little-
started. I'm having so much fun.
I know,
At
but
various
it's been.
times-
I gotta set this record straight. It's been a little over 2 years. A little over 2 years we've been doing this. I mean, time does fly. It's crazy,
Time totally flies. So at various times, I have held up an actual physical copy of the Epoch Times. The point I'm going to enter, not a subscriber, I highly encourage it. It is not only consistently good, well-written news, but it's actually written above the usual like sixth grade level of many of these newspapers. It's written for those of us who are actually competent and intelligent. So there's a plug for Epoch Times. I think you should go out and subscribe to it. As far as Amy Acton, I'm pretty active on social media, and I'm following her posts and activity, and she is consistently cut to shreds. All over, everywhere I can find her, anytime she peeks her head up and posts anything, it's probably about 95 to 99% negatively, not very long-lived. She's probably going to stick around for a while, soak up some money and attention, and then drop out or fizzle out or something. As far as, here's a question for you, and this has come up a few times in recent conversations. Right now, the Democrat Party is in shambles. And I think the reasons for that are fascinating. One has to do with anytime there's a new sort of totalitarian, whatever you want to call it, communist, globalist kind of government, one of the ways that they take root is to point at the prior administration and blame them. And that was happening with Trump. But for the first time in human history, we have a leapfrog event where that person who was being blamed by the new administration, the new communist cabal, actually jumped back in, and he's back in office again, which is crazy. It's driving the Democrat Party into shambles. They don't know what to do. For that reason, I think that what's happening is they're pushing out some people that in my mind are clearly ultra far left communists because they're trying something to stay relevant. They've got now AOC and George Soros and the people that were in the background just kind of pulling some levers. They're actually being pushed out into the front and center. So my question for Jeff Louderback, under this circumstance, what's the trickle-down effect across the nation? The Democrat Party at the federal level is in such disarray. I'm personally hopeful that carries into state politics and leads people like Amy Acton to have nothing to hang their hat on.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious the resounding defeat that the Democratic Party took on, well, I forget the date now, November 5th, first week of November. I covered the race in North Carolina. We were assigned and thank you for the kind words about the Epoch Times. Earlier in my career, I worked for large metro newspapers and got out of full-time journalism because I didn't like the direction it was heading. But the Epoch Times, it's like when you get called up to the majors, everyone is on the same level or better than you, and we inspire each other and writers, and it's all about covering with fairness and balance. And that's a segue back to what I was saying. We assigned different reporters to key battleground states, North Carolina being one of them. So I was in North Carolina all week, crisscrossing the state, going to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump rallies, and obviously the polls were inaccurate again, and Donald Trump won easily. And look at the Democratic Party. I think maybe in December, I can't remember what organization it was, but a poll came out where the Democrat Party has an approval rating of 31%. And I'm surprised it's 31%, really, because I covered the RFK Jr. campaign, and most of the supporters there, you would think that he would have had some Democrat supporters. Most of them were libertarians, former or current Trump people, and moderate Republicans and independents. The Democrat Party is losing steam because they've gone, as RFK Jr. would point out, it's not the Democrat Party of when JFK and his dad Robert Kennedy were in office. I mean, that's the Democrat Party. It used to be where there weren't really major differences, a whole lot of major differences between Republicans and Democrats. And now it's like a lot of people who were moderate are pushed far, what's now considered far to the right. But it's really biblical, constitutional value based thinking.
No, I got you. I mean, there's a huge difference between what Democrats were and have become and everything. They've become like a monster. I want to get Leonard in here for a minute if I can. Leonard, how you doing, man? Do you have a question? And also, Jeff, we'll get into Make America Healthy Again here in just a minute. We'll segue into that. But Leonard, any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I just thanks Jeff for coming on, but it's really amazing to me that when I see Republicans and Democrats, what I see is Democrats promoting socialism, and I see Republicans supporting efficient socialism. And what concerns me is that no one comes in talking about the reality of where we are as a nation and how that will impact the states. And when you start talking about the reality of the federal government having to pay off the interest that's due in 4 years, and they know they can't do it, and then I have people in the background talking about cryptocurrency, then no one's talking about how that's going to impact the states. But we're talking about tweaking this, cutting this, and doing this, but no real reality of what's going to happen or how would the states position themselves if in the event that the federal government goes kaput. In other words, the chickens come home to roost, and it will happen. So that's what concerns me. We're just so far in the weeds, we're not thinking about the reality of the bigger picture here.
Yeah. No. Do you think any thoughts on that, Jeff? And then we'll move into Make America Healthy Again.
So opinions. Most people who follow me on social media know about my advocacy against shutdowns and mask mandates and vaccine mandates during the COVID time. But I mean, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, it's not. I mean, there's plenty. Look at Ohio. We're considered a Republican supermajority, but we're really not. There are very few true conservative state legislators based on their actions, and the Republican Party really isn't a whole lot better than the Democrat Party in some aspects. And yeah, I mean, it's important to recognize that and have critical thought and be able to recognize it's not Republican versus Democrat. I mean, it's important to have our own. It's just important to be informed and to understand, and not fall into that trap of one against the other, and having your own critical thought and recognize that, it's just important to know that just because an R is behind someone's name doesn't make them better than the D, and that's the trap we're falling into in a lot of aspects. So that's not directly related to what he was saying, but I think indirectly it is in a way.
No, I got you.
Joe, can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
So that's a great opportunity for me to once again plug the work and efforts of Precinct Strategy. We have two websites. There's a national precinctstrategy.com, and there's one in Ohio that's dedicated to the state of Ohio. It's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. That is a grassroots effort to reclaim the Republican Party from within, break the back of the uniparty, and give the Republican Party back to we the people. It's about as simple as I can make it. It is encouraging people to become aware of local politics, because remember the expression, all politics is local. The Precinct Strategy spells out step by step, and they're encouraging people waiting to help you to get involved, to become aware, and to start getting engaged at the local level. A lot of people, I don't want to get into the details of this. I'm sure this is something Jeff, our guest, and others on this podcast can comment on, but it is a system that's fundamentally broken. When it works well, we, the people, we are the voice of government. That's been systematically broken through the last several 60 to maybe 100 years, it has been disrupted and broken, and now we have this sort of top-down bureaucratic nightmare of uniparty. It's like the evil conjoined twins of the Democrat and Republican Party. Jeff's spot on. The way we fix that is fundamentally important, and if and when we do that, we the people, we get our voice and vote back. I encourage everybody to go to one of the two of those websites, check out the federal precinct, or the national precinctstrategy.com, and the state-specific Ohio precinctstrategy.org. The more of us that step in and get involved, I'm one of them, and you'll hear my story. I've been on over a year now. I've been training people in the state of Ohio and nationally on how this works. You can hear my story and the story of many others when we flip it back to conservatives taking charge. Great things happen. When we do that at the local, then the county, and then the state level, all of these issues that we're talking about, these things that Jeff is pointing to, the brokenness of Columbus, Ohio, and the fact that we don't really have we have very few solid conservative Republicans in the Republican Party. That's how we fix it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's not having an R after your name. It is what you do with that R after your name. And we're looking for conservatives. We're looking for MAGA Republicans. That's what's changed Ohio. It isn't the Republican Party that changed Ohio. It's the MAGA movement that has really changed Ohio. Let's switch over to Make America Healthy again. So you've been following also with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You've been following his campaign and what he's been doing. So fill us in on that if you would, okay? What has he been doing? He's been doing a lot of good things. I know that.
Well, first I'm going to, after what Jonathan said, this is related to the MAHA movement. I'm going to be coming out with a couple stories on this, how the MAHA movement is, RFK Jr. is the architect, but the MAHA movement is far beyond that. One of the aspects is there's the MAHA PAC. There's a couple of MAHA-related PACs, but this one's called Make America Healthy Again. A guy named Jeff Hutt is behind it, and he was on the Kennedy campaign. Their strategy is to kind of reinforcing what Jonathan said. They are working on getting local and local politicians and getting local people elected and state people elected who are pro Make America Healthy Again to implement the vision, which is across I would say the roots of the MAHA movement. Obviously, removing corporate corruption from government agencies is one, but removing chemicals from foods, locally sourcing your foods, tying it. The HHS is working with the USDA to loosen regulations or remove regulations, make independent farmers more thrive more again, because we're losing hundreds of thousands of acres, actually millions of acres of farmland each year. And so that, and also just ending and tackling the chronic disease epidemic, and obviously vaccine safety and informed consent. Those are big ones, but it does start at I talked about this back during COVID. It starts at the local level. It's important who your local, it's important who the president is and who's in the Senate and the House, but it's more important, in my opinion, or equally important at least, who's on your school board, who is your village council, your city council, your township trustees, because we need people who are going to stand up against, like what was happening during COVID. You hardly had anyone standing up against, they were afraid to stand up against mask mandates and vaccine mandates and lockdowns. And now, obviously, it's important. I'm here in Highland County, which is one of the smallest, and statistically wise, it's one of the most impoverished counties in the state. Yeah, but it's very conservative, voted 83% Trump. But we have a Pride, LGBTQ Pride Day coming up in I think it's June, and a big part of that, they have drag queens there performing for kids here in the Appalachian foothills. There's a lot of churches who aren't even standing up against it. There's a lot of businesses who aren't standing up against it. The commissioners, the Hillsborough City Council, the Highland County Commissioners, they're not standing up. I mean, it's important to elect people who are going to influence change and reflect American values, which are biblical based and constitutional based. And obviously, with a Pride Day, people, the First Amendment, being able to do what you want, but when it impacts kids, that's the big thing. And, you know, with the drag queens performing kids, so in front of kids. So, I mean, that's.
Well, I got a question for you on that. I mean, what kind of turnout do they expect for something like that? If you're 83% Republican conservative, I wouldn't think that you'd get much of a turnout, right? And it's also, you don't have to wait to elect somebody. If the people don't want it, they can voice their opinion right then and there during that during that drag event. People can voice their opinion right then and there and say enough is enough. Get out of here. You know, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
People have to engage. People have to get engaged. It's not just voting, you know, which happens once every couple of years or whatever. But, you know, get involved today doing something. You can call, I guess, the mayor. You could call the city council people, township people, whoever, and say, we don't want this. Fight it, right? I mean,
well, I got off on and I'll get back to the MAHA because I do have some interesting things to talk about MAHA. But as it relates to local politics, this has nothing to do with MAHA. I want to make that clear. But yeah, you're right. But it's related to kind of like the Ohio the Ohio governor's race. The Democrats don't have a strong candidate. If Jim Tressel runs, you have an open primary. A lot of Democrats are going to vote for Jim Tressel. So that relates to small town politics too and local politics because you have a lot of outside influence. I would be very surprised if there are a lot of people here in Highland County that are behind that. I know there's a lot of outside influence, like from Cincinnati and Columbus coming in, and there's a lot of people standing up against it. But a lot of people, anytime you speak up against something like that, you're called racist and a bigot.
Yeah, right. I know. You called everything. All right, but we've got to grow out of that too. Racist has been used so much. It's like, who the hell cares if they call you racist? I couldn't care less. Big deal. Yeah. You know, it's used so much today. It's like it's time to fight back. Well, so what's going on with the MAHA movement?
We got off on
what's happening with that?
Well, the MAHA movement is fascinating because the RFK Jr. campaign started in April of 2023, and obviously August 2024 he left the race and endorsed Trump. At that time, the term MAHA was coined, Make America Healthy Again, but RFK Jr. had been advocating for that for a long time, and that was one of those points I made earlier. That was a big part of his platform. So once once Trump got elected and Kennedy was going through that confirmation process, he's the HHS secretary. The MAHA movement, he's doing a lot. Obviously, it's going to take time to influence or to input everything he wants to do, but he's already focusing on, removing the hallmark things, removing chemicals, ending corporate corruption, tackling the vaccine. That's a big thing. I know he canceled one of the meetings, the FDA meetings on the flu vaccine, where they recommend what the flu vaccines strains will be. He's already tackling all that, and it's just fascinating that people want to see everything happen right away, but it's going to be 4 years. It's going to really need to be. It'll go into 2028 as well. I mean, it'll take 4 to 8 years to influence everything because Big Pharma has a big hold on what happens with vaccines, and obviously the food companies, Big Ag, has a big influence on it's going to cost them a lot of money to clean up the food supply. I mean, obviously that should be RFK Jr. frequently talks about the ingredients in Europe versus the United States. Just as Big Pharma stands to lose a lot of money from vaccines, what should be done with vaccines, Big Ag is going to lose a lot of money by taking chemicals out, and they're going to fight that. So it's going to take time, but it's exciting to cover. I've loved covering the RFK Jr. campaign and now the MAHA movement, HHS, USDA. It's exciting that you got to figure out. It's still early in. People think expect everything that Trump wants to do to happen right away. But what is it? March 23rd. It's 2 months in, so we're just getting started. And the same with MAHA. It extends beyond. It's a movement. It's not just RFK Jr. I did a story on the Crunchy Moms where they had a big influence on RFK's campaign and the MAHA movement now. And you have the MAHA PAC that's striving to get pro-MAHA officials elected at the local and state level. Mm-hmm. And it's all about locally sourcing your food and being able to grow, know where your food comes. Like you'll go back to like 1940.
You'll be able to actually pronounce the ingredients too, which would be a novel thing right there. Okay, so I'm going to bring on Stephanie Stock is joining us here tonight. And, before I let you go, Jeff, since you are working with the MAHA movement, and I know that Stephanie is a big fan of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and stuff. So let me just bring you on here for a second there, Stephanie. How are you today? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Before I get really into talking to you, I have Jeff Louderback. He's from the Epoch Times, Ohio reporter, and he does cover the MAHA movement, as he says, quite a bit and stuff. So I was just wondering if you had a question you want to throw at him before he has to leave. Is there something you have? Anything coming to mind?
A question? I don't know if I have a question per se. I just kind of came in on the tail end of what you guys were talking about. I heard you were saying that, you're kind of covering a lot of what's going on at the federal level. I think that's great. I do think it's important to remind everyone that the state level legislation is absolutely important because, especially with the executive orders and things like that, all of that has to be handled at the state level to make sure that everything is codified so that we have protections even after Trump is gone, because you just never know. Democrats always have some plan up their sleeve. So we need to make sure we got protections in place. And the same thing would go for, any changes that are made at the federal level as far as, food or vaccines or anything like that. We'll definitely want to make sure those are secured at the state level also. I'm sure Jeff probably agrees with that too. So I don't know if that's really a question, but.
Jeff, if you want to stay on a little bit, maybe you could ask a question, or if you have to go, I understand that as well.
Actually, I have a deadline I have to get to, even though it's Sunday night. But I could stay on a few more minutes. But to talk about what Stephanie mentioned, obviously we were talking about that a few minutes ago. But that is good to reinforce local, and whether it's your city, your county, your state, it begins there. That's what our founding fathers, that was their vision too. And that's what you're starting to see with Doge and it's all interrelated about, it's important what happens at the federal level, but it's critical who your local leaders are and who your state leaders are and what happens. And we need people who have the courage to step up and do that, whether it's something with COVID or like what happened during COVID or what if it's related.
Hey, let's talk about that for 1 second and then I'll let you go. But with the MAHA movement and with vaccines and that, what is the stance now with RFK Jr.?
What do you mean by the stance? He's always been, since his early days, he's never said he's anti-vaccine. He's always said that he is for vaccine safety and for informed consent, but he has made the point, which is an accurate point. If you look at the inserts of vaccines and you look at the studies, no vaccine is fully safe or effective. A lot of vaccines, if not all of them, I can't say all of them, but a lot, they cause more problems than the condition they're supposed to treat. Obviously, with COVID was, you look at the stats, and people, when someone says this, they're branded to someone being cold, but COVID was not a serious condition. Most people who, pretty much, I don't think there's any deaths of people who stayed at home. It was all about hospital protocol, the remdesivir and the ventilator. And obviously, most people who died related to COVID had several comorbidities. But people who die, people who are impacted by the flu, die of several because of comorbidities. So that's all related to. It's all about what he talks about: vaccine safety. He's advocating for vaccine safety. He's advocating for informed consent. So no one should be forced to take something they don't want in their body, and they should know the potential ramifications, and that's one of the hallmarks of RFK Jr.'s MAHA platform.
Gotcha. No, that's terrific. Yeah, we are very, very lucky to have him in there. To say that he's a step above Fauci is
Yes.
not even coming close. But yeah. Hey, Jeff, thanks a lot. I know you got to get moving, and appreciate it. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jeff.
Giving us that insight and everything
Thank
like
you.
that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thanks.
God bless. We'll talk to you soon.